Well, good morning, fourth hour. Welcome to week 2. So while I'm going over what you can expect in the G-Meet today and tomorrow, I would suggest opening up your week 2 assignment so that when you get answers, you can put them down right away. So today I'll go over your checklist, schedules, CTA vote, and how you're going to be graded when you perform your introduction speech. You won't perform the introduction speech until next week, but I want to let you know how will you be graded on it. And then today I'm going to teach you something called the Strong 30 technique. We're going to use this to write and perform your first speech. So by the end of the hour, you should be able to start writing your rough draft for your introduction speech, which again, you're going to perform next week. Tomorrow, day 2, I'm going to teach you science of speech, and I'm going to point out some additional resources for you. You're going to also have time tomorrow to finish your rough drafts / your week 2 work and get that in. Just like every week, your work is due Friday, right before midnight, even though we don't have school Friday due to registration. So your checklist for the week: you're going to learn how to use science and speech. You're going to learn what the Strong 30 technique is, and you're going to apply both to writing your introduction rough draft. And just like always, you get one handout to do that work on, so you don't have to chase around different handouts to submit. Like I said earlier, this week is registration, so I've included on your schedule here that your form for registration is due tomorrow. It's due in homeroom. And the reason why we get so spazzed about registration, your teachers and administrators, is because this is how we get our funding and how we plan for next year. So registration is really important to everybody. Thursday is registration night, and then Friday is registration morning. So if you don't have your form in by Tuesday, your homeroom teacher is going to call your people and make an appointment on Google Meet to get that done during those times. So if you'd rather not have your parents involved, or if you just want to get it done, get it in by tomorrow. All right, so a CTA, if you've had me before, you've experienced this. CTA stands for Copeland True Life Adventures. These are just silly little stories from my life, and yes, absolutely true. These are not graded. They're for 2 purposes: entertainment and to give you examples of storytelling. So I have some CTAs already on YouTube. As you can see on the slide, I have links to them. You can watch those links for fun or to inform your vote. You're going to be voting on your week 2 handout whether or not you want a story every week. I am good either way. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to give you extra time for work. However you want this to go. That's why you get to vote. All right. So your introduction speech, which you're going to write this week and perform next week, this is a formative assessment. Typically your speeches are summative, but this one, since it's your first one and you're just learning as you go, this one's formative. So it's going to be the performance itself is 10 points, formative assessment. And here's how I'll grade you. So first, those first 5 points are on your pace and your performing. So your goal is to have enough information to introduce you in the window of 1 to 3 minutes. You don't get a better score if you're closer to 3 or closer to 1. So in that window of 1 to 3 minutes. Also, I'm going to be looking for, is your performance appropriate for a beginner? So a start on eye contact and gestures and things like that. Second thing you'll be graded on for your introduction speech is content. Do you have your name in there? Have you applied information from class? Did you use the Strong 30 technique instead of just listing facts? You do not want your introduction speech to be you performing like this. I like tacos. I like hamburgers. I like ice cream. You don't want to just list things, but I'm going to show you how. So let's talk about strong 30. This is the technique you're going to use to write and perform this introduction speech. So I'm going to go through the steps for you here. Steps and tips. So it's called strong 30 because the first 30 seconds you have memorized. So to start this speech in the introduction, and I will show you an example, for the intro, you write vivid details to get your audience in what you're discussing. In this case, it's introducing you. So what imagery do you want to give us, or what question do you want to ask? Or you can tell a little story about your name, however you want to get us in, but know that first 30 seconds by heart so you can start strong. Second step of strong 30 is the middle. You want to make sure you have a clear plan and a few key details for the middle. Sometimes people get bogged down in the middle of a speech. They get, for instance, very worried that what they're saying doesn't match exactly what they have on their note card, exactly what they wrote. That's okay. As long as you know the main things you want to talk about in the middle, you're good to go. Finally, in strong 30, you write an ending that has either a strong belief, something humorous, something you hope, just a good way to end rather than, you don't want to end like, so yeah, that's my speech. People tend to ramble at the end because they're near the end. They know they're almost done and they just don't know how to close it out. I also suggest close it out with a the end. Because that way you know you're done and so is the audience and you can just be done. Couple of tips about strong 30. It's absolutely okay, and I said this earlier, it's absolutely okay if some of the details that you say are a little bit different than what you wrote. That's completely normal. At no point will I be checking your draft I won't be sitting here with your draft while you're speaking like, that doesn't match. Forgot to say that. Anytime I perform something, it's slightly different each time. That's normal. That's being in the flow and working with your audience. Second tip for strong 30. This is meant to be a simple template. So that way you as a speaker can adapt it how you need to. Now let's show you an example. Actually, let's talk topic ideas and tips, more tips. All right, so I mentioned this earlier. Don't just list facts about yourself to write the introduction speak. It's a lot better to talk about things you really care about or that you value. That helps create imagery or mind pictures for your audience. So for example, if I was introducing myself, I could start talking about my grandma's lefse is my favorite food. It fills the entire house with a ginormous batch. We all get to take some home. Like I can really smell it. I like to put butter on mine, sometimes a little hot sauce. That's better than saying, I like lefse. My grandma's is good. I like lasagna. I like trying food. You get the idea. I've already said your writing doesn't have to match word for word. And memorizing wise, I really only recommend memorizing the first 30 seconds. Then just be familiar with the rest of it. Because memorization depends on getting the first part right. And if you miss a first part, it's all in sequence. It's difficult if you miss a step. Final tip. Sometimes what works on paper doesn't work out loud. That's what makes speech class different from other language arts classes. Our final draft is not a perfect, polished essay. Often, final drafts are messy. You're adding last notes before you perform, what have you. So, speech is more about trying things out to see what works than potentially other language arts classes. Let's show you an example of this. And you have this example in your week 2 folder. I also have a video in there that you can watch of this performance. So I performed an introduction speech to show you what it looks like. So like I had said earlier, for strong 30, you start with a greeting. And for this one, your name. Make sure you say your name clearly. One of the goals of the speech is so I can hear, how do I say this name? Okay. If you have a little story about your name, You can include that in the intro. I've done that here. It's talked about how I got my name from one of my dad's ex-girlfriends. Good times. Then in the middle, I have just main details about my life. So where I grew up, that my brothers are my favorite people, things that frustrate me, what's the good thing about having a disability, because that's a big part of my life. What you spend a lot of your time doing or thinking about works really well for the middle. So, for example, I spend a lot of my time working because I care what I'm doing. And for the most part, I like my work. You can talk about your family. It doesn't just have to be about you. You can also talk about your friends in the middle. It's a good way to do it. All right. Finally, you end with a last thought or some humorous imagery, or even, hey, that's me, the end. All right. So basically, that's what I did. I just wrote, that's a little bit about me and my background. And then I just summarized what my life is like. When you write this, notice I have it in word for word, also known as script format. If you prefer to write in short word or bullet point format, that is equally good. This is not the kind of class where we're going chasing after your comma errors. Speech is more about trying things out to perform, as I said. So you folks at this point have the rest of the time to go through the week 2 folder, see what resources you have, and start writing that introduction speech. Start writing your rough draft. You're going to write it right on. Let's show you this. You're going to put it right on your week 2 handout. This is where your CTA vote is, by the way, right at the bottom below the rubric. So first you have questions about tomorrow's lesson, and then task 2 is where you write your rough draft. And notice it looks very similar to what I just showed you. That is intentional, right? I've also included the usual stars so that you know where to write information about yourself. All right, you folks have the rest of the time. As always, I'll be in the G Meet if you have questions.